Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Or if it's your first time, welcome to my channel. My name is Marlene and I talk about eating disorder recovery and everything related to healing the relationship with your own body, with food and with movement. And I recently got a comment on one of my YouTube videos asking me how can I restore my hunger cues after going through an eating disorder. And this is something that is super important for so many people, so I decided to share my own story and also dive into the science of your hunger cues, of eating disorders and of recovery, so that you can make the best out of this video and that you can learn how to restore your hunger cues. So a lot of people, especially coming from a restrictive eating disorder, and restriction can come in many ways. It doesn't matter where your BMI is at, if you lost a lot of weight or not. A lot of people who are coming from that point have extreme hunger. And extreme hunger is nothing to be ashamed of. It's actually a very common reaction in eating disorder recovery. And I had extreme hunger myself. I could not stop thinking about food, which is the mental hunger that you often hear about, but I also had physical hunger. And oftentimes I would eat so much that I would feel sick afterwards and I thought something is wrong with me. Until I learned about extreme hunger, which is also called post-starvation hyperphagia. It's actually a very common thing. But a lot of people also don't have any hunger cues at all, especially in the beginning of their recovery. So for these people, it can be super helpful to maybe work with a dietitian, with a coach or somebody else who makes sure that they eat enough. Because as challenging as it can be, it is extremely important to eat enough food from the beginning. Please make always sure to see a doctor. I talked about refeeding syndrome before, so we want to make sure that you're not in risk of refeeding syndrome. But it can be very helpful to work with a meal plan at the beginning. It's understandable if you don't want to do that for a long time, but especially if you don't really have hunger cues, it is super important to make sure that you're eating enough. Another thing that you see a lot in eating disorders, and I was the same way, is people who are not eating enough throughout the day. So I personally would not eat breakfast or lunch, and I would only allow myself to eat at night. So in that case, the body oftentimes adjusts. So I wasn't really hungry in the morning or in the afternoon anymore because my body just knew that there would not be any food. Once you start recovery, chances are that you might not feel hungry, especially throughout the day. So it is even more important to make sure that you eat breakfast, that you eat lunch, so that your body can relearn to eat throughout the day. Another thing that is super important and that I was guilty of in the beginning of my recovery as well is I was very used to using volume foods. So that means choosing foods that make you feel full, but for a very low density of energy. So speaking of very low calories. So I would always automatically grab the low calorie, low fat, light versions of stuff. And especially in eating disorder recovery, we don't want to do this anymore because we want to make sure to not be afraid of certain foods, but it's also super important to get in enough nutrients. And you will not get in enough nutrients if you always choose the light version. So instead of filling up on low calorie foods, it is very important to choose energy dense foods. Because first of all, it is very helpful for your neural rewiring and for relearning that those foods are not bad, that there's nothing wrong with eating them. And second of all, it helps you to make sure to get in enough calories. A lot of people actually underestimate how many calories they actually need in eating disorder recovery. And again, it doesn't matter where your BMI is at, it doesn't matter if you are quote unquote weight restored already. If you feel extreme hunger, your body still needs more food. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the science of eating disorders and eating disorder recovery. There are two hormones that are extremely important when it comes to your satiety and hunger cues, and those hormones are ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin is basically your hunger hormone and it gets produced when your blood sugar is very low. So tricking your body doesn't always work. Like a lot of people try to fill up on like veggies or salad and they still feel hungry even though they still feel full at the same time. And that is because of ghrelin, because if you did not consume enough calories and your blood sugar is still too low, ghrelin gets produced. On the other hand, there is leptin. Leptin gets produced in your fat cells, and every person has a normal amount of fat on their body and there's nothing wrong with it. But if you happen to be in a very low weight range, chances are that your leptin levels are very low as well, because again, they need fat cells to be produced. When you start recovery, eating disorder recovery, oftentimes your ghrelin and leptin levels are pretty much out of whack. For a lot of people in the beginning of eating disorder recovery, the ghrelin levels actually spike. So people feel a lot of hunger, which is a normal reaction of the body because the body will only make sure that you survive. If we think about ancient times, the body didn't know if there was a famine going on or if you would not give yourself enough food. So in case there's a famine going on, your body just wants to make sure to tell you, hey, we need food. We need to hold on to a little bit more food because we don't know if there will be another famine. So that is one of the reasons why your ghrelin levels spike. And even though you might gain weight, your leptin levels will not normalize immediately. So it doesn't matter if you just put on a little bit weight and maybe a little bit more body fat, it definitely needs some time for the leptin levels to regulate as well. So this is one of the reasons why your hunger might be even more and might be even higher, because your satiety hormone is not quite there yet. That doesn't mean that you have to go against your hunger. It's actually a sign that you have to listen to your hunger, because your body will only regulate those hormones when you continue to eat enough. Your body needs to be able to trust you again. As I just said, your body doesn't know if there's going to be a famine again, so you want to make sure to show it that there's always going to be food around. That doesn't mean just like every day, that means to every single eating hour. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks in between. Your body just really needs some time to learn to trust you, and it also needs time to internally repair everything that happened during your eating disorder. Unfortunately, you can't control how long that lasts, and you can also not really control what your body is using the energy for, but it is important to listen to your body. Now, if you are someone who started recovery and is starting maybe with a meal plan and still does not feel extreme hunger, that can happen, and then also make things harder, which is why I said in the beginning, it can feel like a curse, but it can also be very helpful to have extreme hunger. So please continue to make sure to eat enough. I know how uncomfortable it can feel to like quote unquote force feed yourself, but it is really important. And while you make sure to eat enough, also make sure to eat a variety of food, because first of all, there's a lot of things that your body needs and you will not get them from like a single meal over and over again. But more importantly, you need to challenge your fear foods. So you might feel safe with a certain food, but after a while you have to mix it up. I have a client that I'm working with like a variety of foods because they do eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but we want to make sure they don't always eat the same things. We want to make sure they allow themselves to try new things. We want to make sure they challenge their fear foods, not just once or twice, but over and over again. So I really hope this video helped you guys. Let me know in the comments how your journey with your hunger cues looks like, and also what other topics you would like me to cover. And otherwise, I will see you in the next one.